All right, welcome back to another episode of Chasing Rings. Fellas, good evening. What's popping?
Good evening,
Hello,
my
gentlemen.
color.
How are you?
Chilling, 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 chilling. A lot going on in sports right now. Super football heavy, obviously, with the combine just ending and a lot of free agency moves and franchise tags. A lot of sports news happening, but y'all know how we do it here on Chasing Rings. We can't get going without
Wait, what?
have a really good one for you today, I think. Big dude, you might know this one. I hope not. Did you guys know that the Philadelphia Eagles are the only team in the NFL that has a logo that faces left?
Wait, what?
What? I
You
didn't
never
know
thought
that.
about that, right? You never
I,
thought about that.
no, I'm trying. I'm looking at it. I'm like, oh, okay,
Is
All
it
all
right.
right.
really?
Yes.
Yeah, because look at that.
It's the only logo that faces left. And here's the history behind it. Jeff Lurie's ex-wife, Christina Lurie, who is still a minority owner, changed the logo in 1996. All right. She also changed the colors too, I believe. So there's a hidden, she had to get special permission from the league to do this. And there's a hidden detail in this. I don't, if you guys could pull it up for yourselves at some point. If you cover up the eye on the eagle, that white area forms the letter E.
If you
So it's
cover
a
the
subtle.
eye,
If you cover up the eye in the logo, the formation of the feathers on the head is an E, and it's a subtle nod to the Eagles. Obviously, it's the only NFL logo with a built-in letter into the design.
so you know I have to pull this up.
It had me looking at all the logos like, there's no way they're all. Of course, there's some that are to the left. Nope,
So if you
every
cover
single
up
one.
the eagle's eye,
Yep. So if you kind of put your hand over that part, to
uh-huh,
the right of your hand will be an E. The feathers will form the letter E.
it
It's really
sure,
subtle.
it sure. All right, now that's a good one.
I wish I would have had it for the last episode when we were talking about the Eagles, but yes, I did come across that. Big
Uh,
dude, what do you have for us this evening?
Well, I'm sure we'll talk about the combine. So let me just start off with this. Um, wait, what? Uh, and I'm sure G will appreciate this as well. This person that I'm about to mention, I just wonder, this person endeared themselves to a great workout is Sonny Styles, the edge linebacker from Ohio State. Um, and he had a great session, and all kind of athleticism and all his linebacker stuff and everything. But did you know that in this modern era, Sonny Styles is the first person over 230 pounds and 6'4" that ran under a 4.5, 4.46, and had a more than a 40-inch vertical, 43 and a half inches, and also had a standing raw jump of over 11 feet.
Wait, what?
bruh.
That's insane freakishness. That's just insane. G, did you realize watching some of these Ohio State cats what beast athletically they were, or were you just kind of,
Oh yeah,
you're
no. I knew that they were they're athletic. That was something that, if I remember correctly, Urban Myers really started that.
mm-hmm,
Getting a lot of these more athletic cats on the team. So
mm-hmm.
and so the last couple of years, I mean, you all watched Ohio State's athleticism has been ridiculous the last several years.
And I'm not trying to take a plug for the SEC here. This is not what this is meant to be. But I believe they were saying that he was starting to recruit the type of athletes from those regions that were typically going to SEC schools, and kind of Ohio State became
Mhm.
a different type of team in the Big Ten, faster, stronger. Is that there's truth to that, correct?
There's a lot of truth to that
A
because if
lot
you
of
So,
think
truth.
about where he had a lot of his recruiting connections after a while, it was down in the South, the
mhm.
Southeast in particular. So Yeah, he never lost that when he was at Florida. So he never lost those connections. And he just really, I think, dove into them once he got to Ohio State. But I want to say that started it.
And you got to think about what a great benefit that is to the program and what it has been really, even since he left, to have that recruiting base because of his time in Florida. I mean, you still have that. And I know I saw something recently where Urban Meyer was involved in recruiting candidates for the Florida job. But he was literally calling candidates. And I think he might have had something to do with actually picking the candidates for the Florida head coaching job, to at least for that first round of candidates. Because I did see him on a call with the guy that was just hired in Florida. His name escapes me right now, but so he's still pretty involved in that. So that's pretty cool. Anyway, kind of going off on a tangent here. G, what's your what for the day?
I suspect many Chicago fans may know this, and maybe some NFL historians may know this, but I came across a fact about the Chicago Bears that their mascot Staley the Bear is named after the team's original name. And I was like, well, I always thought Chicago Bears was the original name, but they were the Decatur Staleys.
Wait, what?
Decatur, like in Decatur,
I'm telling you,
Georgia.
I never heard about
Staley.
that.
Yeah, I heard that. I had the encyclopedia of the NFL when I was a kid, and I do not recall that.
Yeah, I don't even know how I came across this site, but I did, and I saw that one for the Bears, and I'm like, oh wow, I thought I knew a lot about the Bears because when Sweetness was there, at that point I was still a Dallas fan because I was a Dallas fan because my brother was, but nevertheless I respected Chicago, and so I thought I knew quite a bit. I even knew about the stadium and its history with the soldiers, so I knew all of that stuff. This I did not know.
Who would have known such a storied franchise had that name at one point?
Yep, who would have guessed?
So pretty interesting. All right, so that's our
Wait, what?
for the day. All right, let's get into some news. I'm going to start with baseball. It's about that time. They're heavy in the spring training. Season will open next month. We already have a PED suspension, fellas. Two-time offender. Atlanta Braves outfielder, I think I'm saying his name right, Jerickson Profar, has failed the PED test for the second time. And then MLB, the first time you get 80 games, second time you get the season. 162 big. He loses his $15 million salary. He can't play in the World Baseball Classic, and he can't even play in postseason if the Braves make it to the postseason. So jackass booty of the day, Jerickson Profar. and I apologize for stealing that term from another show. I apologize for stealing that term. It's just ridiculous. I mean, baseball, out of all the sports with the big steroid scandal, like, why would you even go there? Anyways, March Madness is upon us. One of my favorite times of year. Other than the NFL and the college football season, I love nothing more than March Madness. Both the women's and men's conference tourney started on the men started on Sunday and the women yesterday. I don't know. Did you guys realize that? I didn't know that. The conference tournaments. Yeah, they started Sunday. The men started Sunday. I think it was the Horizon Conference started Sunday, and the women started today. I don't know which conference is set off today, but the women started today. And those teams obviously are playing for one of the 31 automatic seeds in the bigger NCAA tournament, for those of you who aren't familiar with college basketball. The UConn women finished the regular season 31-0, fellas. 11th time in UConn history that they went undefeated. So obviously they're going to be the number one seed. So they're projected to be another number one seed. I think they're ranked second in the country. They'll be the second ranked number one seed, but South Carolina, Texas, and UCLA will be the other number one seeds in the women's side. The men's side, it'll be Michigan, Duke, Arizona, and UConn. But the men's side, they don't know who's going to be the overall number one yet. So that's what it looks like for that. So let the madness begin. And make sure. I'm about to say we gotta start watching. We gotta move from football to college hoops now. We gotta mix it up a little bit here. So expect us to have more coverage of March Madness. We're gonna fit it in somehow in our draft outlook.
And what happened to Miami of Ohio?
Did they lose? They didn't lose, did they?
They won 30 games, but I don't know if they.
Yeah, they're undefeated. They were undefeated. Yeah, that's a big controversy. I think it was Bruce Pearl said something disrespectful to them the other day, saying that they didn't deserve to be in the NCAA tournament. No. And I haven't followed them closely all year. The story started popping up. So Miami, Ohio is undefeated in college hoops on the men's side. And there's some debate over whether they should be in the tournament if they don't win their conference tournament. And I'm thinking this team's going to basically be 30-0 or however many games they played. You got to put them in the tournament. I don't care if they lose in the first round of their conference tournament. You got to put them in the tournament. But it's just like the NCAA football situation, right? Very political and, mid-major. So everybody's like, whatever, challenging, saying, who was it that said that they wouldn't? I think Bruce Pearl might have been the person that said they wouldn't they finished in last place in the Big East, I believe was his quote. And of course, their coach came back.
Big East last.
Yes, that they would finish last in the Big East. And I just don't buy that. I don't buy that. But we'll start to turn our eyes more to some hoops so we can be a little bit more informed when these discussions start to take full, especially for the next month here before they decide champions on both sides of the spectrum there with the women and the men. The NFL, man, what isn't going on in the NFL? Teams really starting to make room for free agency, clearing up some cap space, some big names getting let go. I think we've had Tyreek Hill so far, Bradley Chubb, both from the Dolphins. We've had David Montgomery, which was a little bit of a shocker to me, for Detroit to take away one of their featured backs. Tampa had Hassan Reddick, which I don't know. You might be able to comment a little bit more on how big or little that loss was. I don't know, not really the most dependable player, but his name's thrown out there as one of the bigger releases. Of course, Jadeveon Clowney, who's getting a little up there in age, but today Arizona announced that they're going to be releasing Kyler Murray. I want to talk about Kyler Murray for a minute because I know Big Dude and I were talking about him earlier. And I think that there may be a little bit of disrespect being hurled his way that shouldn't be warranted, because I could be wrong on this. I thought that he had gotten Arizona to the number 1 seed at one point. If not, it was a 1 or 2 seed in the NFC. I remember they hosted a playoff game. I believe they ended up getting beat, unfortunately. But he had Arizona in a really nice situation there for a few years. What do you guys think about how he's being perceived in the free agent market? Because, certainly there's some teams that need a quarterback bad. He's proven his size has always been somewhat of an issue. But what are your thoughts on how he's being perceived? And, if you needed a quarterback, would you take a chance on a Kyler Murray type quarterback? Let's start with you, Big Dude.
I think that people are well aware that he is a tremendous competitor. He has elite athleticism, but I think most of the people will be concerned about his decision-making under pressure, especially inside the red zone. He's somebody that's going to make a play that other folks can't make, but it all depends on how bad the other teams need a quarterback. If you need a quarterback that's a big play guy, you go get him. If it's a very structured offense where certain things need to happen, I don't think he's built for that. So I think that's how they see him.
Mm-hmm. Any thoughts on that, G?
I was looking at the stats. I'm like, they being Arizona were 7 in passing yards.
Yeah, he always did numbers. But I think one of the arguments could be, though, is that, so I'll take Jacoby Brissett, for example. He came in and he was putting up numbers when he came in when Murray was hurt. So some people are like, well, it's the system. It's not necessarily Kyler Murray, which I don't necessarily agree with. I think Jacoby Brissett is a legitimate NFL quarterback. Certainly not a starter, but if you need a backup, he can come in and win some games for you. So I don't think that was fair to Kyler,
Mm-hmm.
but that's a great point. They do put up numbers. They scored points.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm really from what I was reading, some of it is he was wanting to leave.
Mm-hmm.
Some of it was just not getting along with LaFleur. And then you're right, they did make it to that playoff, but I think it was just one. I have
Yeah.
to go back and check, but if I remember correctly, I think it was just one. Honestly, I think this is less of a Kyler performance issue per se. I think it's more of the culture of Arizona and whether or not he fits into that culture. And I
Mm-hmm.
don't think he does right now. And definitely, if he's asking to leave.
Mm-hmm.
I think I read he asked to leave. If he's
Okay.
asking, then you let him go. You release a lot of that cap space,
Mm-hmm.
and then you start rebuilding. And like you said, their backup is serviceable. So the question is, how do you want to rebuild? You could take multiple approaches, and I guess we'll get into this when we get to the Arizona review. But I'll
Mm-hmm.
end by saying this: it seems to be mutual. If anybody's talking about his performance, yes, he had a down year, but still, even with that, they performed pretty well offensively, particularly from the passing perspective. I'm like, if anybody's saying, I think anything other than a lot of this is cap space culture, then they're just general hate on Kyler. And Kyler Murray already had his haters, so.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. When his draft came up, there was certainly some naysayers who questioned his size. But
Mhm.
one of the greatest Texas high school football players of all time had a great career at Oklahoma. He's had success at every level. I think the
Yep.
only other thing that I would argue, and I really wouldn't even argue it, he's been injury prone, but I wouldn't say that he's had the type of injuries that were due to his stature. You know, he had,
Mhm.
I think he had didn't he have a knee or maybe Achilles at one point? So he's had those type of injuries. So anyways, we'll see what happens there. I hope he lands in a good spot. I think he still has something in the tank, and I think he could contribute to the right team and the right system. So we'll keep our eye on that. This will be interesting, especially as quarterbacks start to get released. And then you talk
Mhm.
about this being a weaker draft for quarterbacks. Some of these big name quarterbacks getting released could certainly impact the draft, and if some of these guys end up getting drafted or not.
I'm looking that he had a right ACL tear, and the
Mm-hmm.
reality is it can be difficult, and this is by individuals. That is a tough one to try to come back from. That is very tough, and because he's very, very quick, which means he can produce a lot of force, real quickly, on that tear. As much as you're doing rehab and you're doing all your sprints and stuff, it's totally different when you're in the game. Totally different. And so in
And
that, and dependent on whether or not he was favoring one side or another, that can lead to additional leg injuries, which obviously he had a foot injury, and I forgot what his third one was.
mhm.
So I wouldn't be surprised if the ACL for him, if he came back too early, or if
Also,
something happened during the rehab process that created some type of imbalance. Maybe he was favoring one side over the other, even during rehab. And then some of it is just the individual person and how your body responds. So it could actually be a good thing for him to just leave and let a new team reevaluate that injury and determine what they want to do with
yeah, a reset definitely won't hurt him in this case.
it.
So good luck to him. But big dude dropped this one on me earlier today. The Drew Dalman retirement, just a stunner. Did not expect to see that, especially we're going to talk about Chicago shortly, and You know, I'm sure we all looked at their line and where their line was and looked like they were building something really nice up front. And to have the centerpiece of that line to just up and retire at 27, it's kind of crazy. Big dude, you have any thoughts on that or get any additional intel? We didn't really see any rationale for why he did. Did you come across anything else, or have they not released that yet?
Well, I haven't seen anything new that they have released. He actually had a outstanding season. I mean, he was an All-Pro last year. He had the best season, and he signed a great contract. Everything seemed to be going his particular way. So far, Chicago's been pretty guarded about it. I've tried to catch some of their different social media and shows and other things, and there's still a whole lot of questions. And let's just say the Bears fans haven't been real nice about this retirement. They have a lot of opinions about it, and you just never know. I mean, one thing I know about playing center is, and you all probably know about it too, is center is probably still the position where if you have to stop somebody, you use your head. You know, they take it away most of it. Yeah, your head.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and a lot of other people, you know, they're not teaching that as well. When you got two people coming and it's always 2-on-1, sometimes you're reaching across and your head is making a stop. You got to look at it too. You look at Detroit. The funny part is we're talking about Detroit today too. They lost their guy. What was his name? Glasgow. They lost him, brought him back, and he said, "You know what? Can't do this anymore. This is crazy." You know, Jason Kelsey went a number of years, and now we mentioned Cam Jurgens on the last show. A lot of people, especially that and your back, using your back and doing a whole lot of other things makes it very difficult. So I think in this situation, it's hard to tell. I don't know about his family situation. Sometimes you've just had enough, and you always wonder what your health was like off season. So he had the best season of his life. I just wonder his personal life, whether that was the worst season. Sometimes your best season is to get away from what's going on off season that has nothing to do with football. Football helps you get away from things. So
yeah,
I have not heard anything else.
Yeah, I hope it wasn't anything like that. I mean, I hope obviously he's physically healthy, but I hope it's something more like that to just preserve his body and nothing else going on in the young man's life. So wish him the best there. We'll see what the details are and why he actually decided to hang it up. I'm sure at some point this week. Franchise tag. And we have an interesting development with the tag situation today. So franchise tags, no surprise. G, you had called it on the last episode. Pickens was franchised. Kyle Pitts was franchised. Breece Hall, I think, was one of the last people franchised today. Today was the franchise tag deadline, 4 p.m. today. So those were the most notable names. But here's an interesting one, and I don't know have you guys ever heard of this before? I had never heard of this. Indy placed Daniel Jones placed a transition tag on Daniel Jones.
Oh, Daniel Jones.
Yes, the quarterback. I had never heard of a transition tag before.
No.
So basically what the transition tag is, and I'll compare it to the franchise tag, is a transition tag, that 1 year salary he's basically going to get is the average of the top 10 salaries at his position, where the franchise is the average of the top 5 salaries at your position. The other difference is if he can still go shop himself. If somebody offers and Indy doesn't match it, Indy doesn't get anything in return. I believe with the franchise tag, you can get monetary return and or picks, I believe. Don't quote me on that, but it's one and or the other. So you get something in return, basically, on the franchise tag if he decides to go and they don't match the offer. So that's extremely interesting that they put him on that transition tag. Part of me,
do they have an issue with him?
Well, don't forget he tore his Achilles.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm wondering if that has something to do with it, and they're kind of hedging their bets here. Like, okay, we'll offer you the 1 year, but let's kind of see how rehab's going, and if maybe you can find something else. But my problem with that from the Indy perspective is you had Anthony Richardson ask for out, and certainly even if he didn't and Daniel Jones left, I don't think he'd be your starter next year. you let Daniel Jones possibly walk. What is your plan for a quarterback next year for a team that really should have been in the playoffs and should have won its division and would have won the division if Daniel Jones had not torn his Achilles? So that's the first time I'm hearing that. I had to look that one up because I had never heard it before.
No. And speaking of interesting, the Seahawks not putting a franchise tag on Kenneth Walker the third.
Yes. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, I saw that he actually might be out.
They said right after the Super Bowl that they probably were going to let him walk, but I'm like, they can't do that. Super Bowl MVP, you're gonna let him walk?
Well, they don't want to play. People don't want to pay money for running backs, you know.
No. And the other big one, big dude. I'm glad you brought that up. I almost forgot. Trey Hendrickson, since he didn't put the tag on him either. So these teams are gonna let in Cincinnati's case, your best player outside of maybe Burrow and Chase, you're gonna let your best defensive guy for sure walk. In Seattle, I could see that, but I want to know what your plan is when you're letting a guy walk like that. What is your plan? Tell me what your plan is, because it's not like running backs are a dime a dozen.
See, that's what I'm thinking. Even though, yes, I think they tend to have shorter careers, like over the average. I think that's part of the concern with them. But it's like, when you do have a tank, and you do have this person who more than likely will be there for a 10, 12-year career, if he continues to go the way he's going, I don't think he's slowing down anytime soon. That might be one that you actually pay for, because running backs are important in today's league.
Well, it's like they're banking everything on Zach Charbonnet, but when you have those lower extremity injuries, especially, you don't know if that player is going to be the same again afterwards. So it's gambling. It's gambling on Charbonnet coming back and being 100%. If that's the case, then they're good. But
right, that's actually a good point. They're probably banking on that. I can't remember what was his injury.
I feel like it might have been an ACL. Do you remember, big dude?
You talking about Kenneth Walker the third?
No,
Charbonnet.
Zach Charbonnet's injury.
Oh, gosh, I'm not sure.
I feel like it was an ACL.
Torn ACL.
That's what I thought. I mean, true. You take an educated guess in the game today. 9 out of 10, it's going to be an ACL or an Achilles. I mean, that seems to be all the injuries, right?
Or God forbid, a high ankle sprain.
Oh, those things never go away.
Nope.
Any other comments
torn
about
ACL is people come from they return, but that's still a tough road to hoe for real though.
It is. It really is. I mean, I feel like with ACL injuries, obviously we know historically medicine wasn't what it was, and then they had all these advances and you could bounce back quickly. I feel like we're now on the other side of that, where people aren't bouncing back as quickly from ACLs as maybe they had been the last decade or so. But it could just be me, but it seems like that's just not a simple repair anymore, and that some of these guys are taking longer. Like we've hit that peak and kind of come down the other side where the rehabs are a little bit longer now, which probably has something to do with athletes being bigger and faster and the strain, that additional strain that it's putting on the modern day athlete. But again, not a doctor, at least not a medical one. So I'll stop there.
Well, actually, no, you're on to something. And that includes as a kid, how many of these players now, as a young kid, when we were playing 3 sports or 4 sports, they are specializing younger and younger and younger. That's so true. You're having repetitive overuse. A lot of times, by the time you get to college, you'll see a lot of these injuries popping up. And those who are fortunate to make it to the league, some of them, their time is up and they tear an ACL. But yeah, what you said, bigger, stronger, faster, is definitely a part of it. But the overuse part, because they're starting so young, is also a part, and they are focused. So that's also I wouldn't be surprised that is all impacting how fast current athletes are coming from these injuries.
Mhm. Yeah, so it'll be interesting to see what Charbonnet looks like, but I feel like you need two running backs in today's game. If you look at the more successful teams, they usually have that second running back. But anyways, that's our news. We are going to jump in before we jump into the NFC North analysis. Let's talk about the combine a little bit. Because I feel like we can't just let that go and me spit some stats and how fast and how high. Big Dude touched on it earlier, but how impressive were these young men in this 2026 combine? I know, I feel like you maybe watched a little bit more of it than Big Dude and I did based on conversation going back and forth. What jumped out at you? I mean, other than the obvious, the faster times and the guys with these massive bodies doing things that you're just not supposed to be able to do, what immediately stood out for you?
Yeah, I like the way you gave some of the pre-discussion of this. It was obvious: bigger, stronger, faster, more agile, power. You could see, everybody could see that. It didn't matter which position group it was, you could see that. So, but I watched some of this. I watched a little bit more of the skills aspect. So a lot of the running and cutting and stopping and starting, a lot of the hand-eye drills. And so I definitely like those drills. I have a better respect for the combine after this is honestly the first time I truly watched the combine. So some of my statements I want to take back. Why I said that, I don't think they really test a lot of things that are actually happening in the game. To a degree, they actually do. So so I would say that was a big observation for me. Um, Now some of the geek in me had to go do some research, and I asked myself the question: how how accurate is the combine when it comes to performance on the field? In every study I saw, basically, like, there's really no predictive outcome from that. But there is a positive that came out of the research. If you do well in the combine at your role, you will likely move up. If you do better than expected, it predicts well that you will move up and where you may go. So I look at it so there's the pure play perspective that I thought about as I reflected on the combine. And, like, for the entertainment value, I think creating that camaraderie, I think it is great. Um, I think it's kind of good seeing in isolation the agility, the speed. I think it's good when you look at total package of an athlete. But really, I think the most important is from a bank perspective. I'm training my athlete like to do the best they can do in that combine so they can move up and get more bank. So those are kind of the three big takeaways from the obvious, for some of me eating my prior words, and then going into it looking at it as a business person and as a geek.
I think for me, just one statement. I couldn't tell one position from another at times. I couldn't tell a running back from a linebacker, from a tight end.
Uh,
Like even Ty Simpson. I don't know if you saw him.
I
He's been
didn't
in the
see him.
gym. He's been in the gym. His arms didn't look like that in Tuscaloosa.
Uh,
I was like, Ty's cut up a little bit.
but
But
here's
yeah,
the
man.
thing: Ty issue, and we've had this discussion. It's not the tools; it's the decisions.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because he looks the part. There's
Oh
no
yeah.
doubt he looks the part.
And when it's
So we'll
clicking, what
see.
does he do? When he's in the flow and things are clicking, I hate Alabama, but you gotta respect the dude. I mean, he's a
Yeah.
good quarterback if he can stay in flow. I think he's a good quarterback, and I think he'll do fine. But if he's not straight up here, all that physical is not going to matter.
I always held my breath whenever he dropped back to pass. Big dude, big dude. Your thoughts on the combine?
Well, while we're talking about the quarterbacks, and I happen to agree with both of y'all, it was the same way. But I would say I know that Mendoza did not participate in it. He looked great standing there watching, but I kind of saw why he didn't have to do it. I'm going to be honest with you. The quarterbacks did the best they could. Let's start with them real quick. They did the best they could, but you saw the clear difference between them and Mendoza. Nobody's pushing Mendoza to be the best quarterback in the draft. Now, these quarterbacks have improved, Simpson and Beck. And Drew Aller looked good the other day, too. The only issue with Drew Aller is, Drew Aller showed probably the most prominent arm strength that I've seen in all the quarterbacks. It's very hard to tell how he's going to be with precision passes and deep outs and other things like that. He's back on his feet, and to be under real pressure with somebody coming at him, it will be the next thing. But it was good to see them out there. The quarterback class is not close to Mendoza. And of course, the defensive line and the edge rushers, they showed as we started off with our wait what, and there are a number of other people with their athleticism. The athleticism in this draft, and as G said, I watched it closer, and I thought I watched it before, but I watched it from a different lens this time and saw more people of all sizes with tremendous athleticism all the way through. And of course, we also saw Sadiq, the tight end from Oregon. Here's a guy, Sadiq. This man is 243 pounds. And for the first time since Vernon Davis breaks Vernon Davis' record. Vernon Davis runs a 4.4, and it's not like Vernon Davis was slow, because he wasn't. And this guy ends up running a 4.39 with a high vertical, a vertical over 40, and a standing long jump over 11. So all those good things, but what I saw was there was a lot more. The people seemed to be more in tune and more prepared for the drills, especially the defensive ends, the linemen. Caden Proctor, I thought, I'm going to say he had the best workout amongst all the linemen. Not just because he's a favorite of mine, because I don't even know the guy, but I have to say he did a good job coming in 15 pounds lighter than what he was. So I liked his focus, and I liked the fact that they got together and they understood what the drills were, and they seemed to be much more aware of how to meet with the teams. I saw some of the interviews, and I liked the interviews that they had. But that's where I'm at. The defensive ends, the linebackers, the edge rushers, the safeties, and all those people were very solid. But I think the linemen did a good job of pulling themselves out of the 20s and the teens. And some of them may make it in the top 10 to get drafted based on all these other things that Guru mentioned earlier in the show with all these changes. So all these things all is perfect timing to find out whether they can make that athleticism apply to what they have to do very early. Many of them have to be NFL ready, and we will find out for sure.
Hey, I want to ask you guys a question, something that came to mind when you were speaking about Mendoza, big dude. Do you think, we've seen in the past, and there have been number one picks, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, that have not participated in the combine. Certainly there were quite a few people who didn't participate in the skills. They were there but didn't participate. Do you think it was strategic on Mendoza's camp's part to not participate? And do you think he may, I don't want to use the word exposed, but athletically, because we looked at these quarterbacks that participated. So we take Taylor Green, for example. You watch him go and do what he did, and then Mendoza, because I'm just thinking about how Mendoza looks. He looks great when he's playing, but in these type of skills type of events, do you think that he may have taken a hit in terms of his athleticism, or is it just me trying to find something where there is nothing?
Well, I think that one of the unfortunate parts about the combine is, I think you just mentioned it in a different way. The combine is very good for finding out what you can do, but it is also, I think y'all mentioned it the last show, it's also an opportunity for people to find out what you can't do. And many of the people that go in, when you've won all the awards he's won, I think I saw he won every major award except one. What else have you got to prove, or what else can a team say, especially when rumors are out about what it is that Mendoza can't do? That's what the combine shows you. I mean, there's some people, they even were first team all Big Ten and a number of other things. But when they started rolling around on the ground and they started trying to turn their hips and starting to do a whole lot of other things, you could see the difference of who could handle the stress of a game, or stress when you get knocked on your tail, you know. Or like I said with Drew Aller, it's going to be difficult for people to prove whether he's going to be able to take the pressure, because he was out early, so we don't know. Now, Mendoza, I think, did the right thing by not doing this. And also, I also found out, we talked about Sonny Styles earlier. I looked for all his stuff. I also looked at denied Dennis Sutton. That's another person. I also saw that some people ran, but there were other people that did not do the 225 tests. You know, so Sonny Styles did not do that. Of course, people said that the scouts are looking for the deep ankle bend and all those other types of things. I'm sure they are, but they didn't probably want to show a deficiency of you not being able to do 225 at least 20 to 25 times, which is what they want to do. So anytime there's a negative, the negative, it all shows up now, all on AI and all on Copilot and all those other types of things. So I think we have a different game, and everything is broadcast when it is negative, and it's very readily available when people want to use it in all their negotiations. Even though they only have a rookie deal, these are the differences that show when someone has a weakness.
G, you have any thoughts on that, or you think I'm just making fire where there's no smoke?
Repeat your question, the big dude, because I was typing.
That's okay. So Mendoza not participating, do you think that was more strategy on his camp's part? Because I'm thinking how these other quarterbacks look so athletic, and when you look at him, you don't. One of the adjectives that comes to mind when you look at him isn't, oh, he's super athletic, and he almost is gangly looking. And I'm wondering if maybe there may have been a lack of athleticism that may have shown trying to run those type of drills. I mean, just envisioning him at that size running a 40, doing the cones. I can't even envision it, what it would look like.
Well, the reality is that's been a question mark for him, pretty much this whole season, that he's not the most athletic quarterback. Even though he'll try and break a pocket in a moment's notice. But that's definitely one of the knocks on him. The arm strength or velocity, that's a knock. And the thing is, in the combine, all these get really amplified because you're doing drills that are specifically geared to evaluate your athleticism, Now, versus when you're in the game, when you're in the game and you're making decisions, you have blocks, you have people moving around you. So the type of athleticism is not necessarily one-to-one. So he may look totally different in a game versus the combine. So yes, it was probably strategic because they don't want his stock to drop. I mean, the reality is, in terms of player rankings, he's not the top in terms of player rankings. Now, he's the top draft because Las Vegas Raiders, they need a good quarterback. But he's not necessarily the best player if you believe in all the rankings. So with that in mind, if I'm his team recognizing that, I'm like, you know what? Let's just save it for a pro day.
Yeah, and
It's
he
good
had
stuff.
nothing to gain. He had nothing to gain. I just was curious as to what your thoughts were. And it just hit me when Big Dude brought that up. Like, wait a minute. Dude didn't throw for us. He didn't run the fort. Like, and quarterbacks
Yeah.
typically, we know the 40 times of usually the quarterbacks that have been in the draft before because they all did the gauntlet of skills test. But yeah,
Yeah.
definitely, I don't blame him. I wouldn't have done it either.
No. Shoot,
Especially with
man.
this class, it wasn't like he was going to drop rankings in quarterback. Like there was nothing to be gained by him doing this. So
Zero.
I'm with him.
No.
I'm with him.
Yeah, and they have pro days coming up. Now, pro day, he might show him a little something. We'll see how that
Yeah.
goes.
Well,
Yeah.
that's a very sanitized environment. So
Exactly. You're throwing to your guys, and
Mhm.
you're more comfortable in your space and all that. So yeah, I see that. Yeah, I'm just trying to stir up some ish. Well, before the draft, that's all.
It was fun to watch. I'm not gonna lie.
All right, so that's it for the combine. We are going to get into our draft outlooks. Let's get into the Chicago Bears. All right, so the Bears, very impressed with them this season. Had a nice season, obviously winning the North, winning a playoff game. One play away from the NFC Championship game after Caleb makes that tremendous throw. You almost hate to see him lose after he made such a spectacular play. But
Yeah.
man, what a game. Good season for the Bears. I think for the most part, the Bears offense was pretty consistent, I thought, throughout the year. I think one of the big surprises, I don't know, do you guys realize that Kyle Monangai, the running back I think it's number 25 for the Bears, that he was a 7th round draft pick?
No.
And I thought about, everything that you've been saying when we talked about draft and prospects and running backs, about how you can find these gems in these late rounds. That kid ran like he was a 1st round draft pick. And I think as great a year as Caleb had, Caleb ended up throwing for almost 4,000 yards this year. Still no Bears quarterback has thrown for 4,000. Caleb was right there. But I think having that running attack for them really helped him relax a little bit more, knowing he didn't have to do everything. And a lot of times, and I hate to bring this game up, Big Dude, bad memories, but that game sticks out for me when they played the Eagles, is the running game. Once they got up, it really allowed them to control the game, and they end up wearing your defense down without Caleb really having to do much. So it almost established this offensive identity for Chicago. On the flip end of that,
hold on, Jim McMahon didn't throw for 4,000?
No Bears quarterback has ever thrown for 4,000 yards in an NFL season.
Oh, wow.
On the defensive side of it, the Bears were like bipolar on defense, in my opinion. They led the league in takeaways, so they could get you to turn it over, but they couldn't really stop people on a consistent basis. Could not stop people. Now, they lost their best corner, Jalen Johnson, who was hurt before the season started. And then he tried to come back in week 2, but it just didn't work. So he never really played. And he's the Pro Bowl cornerback that was a big free agent the summer before, and he wasn't even able to play. So part of their defensive woes was certainly injury, but pretty disappointing because they made a lot of transactions during the year. And for them to be that disappointing on that side of the ball, it was definitely a downer, I'm sure, for Chicago fans. Their draft was great. Most of those guys contributed on offense, though, however. Monangai I just mentioned, Loveland. So, I mean, that kind of wraps up the Bears season to me in a nutshell. Anything else for you guys stick out about the Bears season? Certainly they elevated themselves over, I would think, the next few years with Caleb as quarterback. They should be in that conversation. But anything else stand out for you in terms of their play this year?
Well, I mean, one of the things I was able to track, it sounds like that their top receiver for the most part was a tight end, which is nice. And I think that's another reason why Williams did better. I mean, he had a very serviceable tight end. I guess the question is going to be, isn't DJ Moore not quite as good this year? He's going to become a free agent. So how will all that work? And will they keep him? He has a $28 million contract. So, and he didn't get, for him to not to be the top receiver with that type of contract, and 32 years old, you wonder what it is that you're going to go to next. So it sounds like they can't keep just going to the tight end. You know, they kind of did it the old way the Eagles did it with Keith Jackson. You know, that's fine. That'll get you to the second round of the playoffs. So I think that beside the edge rushers and all those other things that were there, like I said, the quarterback had a fine year, and they had some difficult injuries up front. And then the last thing I heard is it'll be interesting to see if you bring back somebody like a Khalil Mack, you know, who's 35 years old, going to be 35 years old when the season starts, coming back from the Chargers. How will that work? Are you bringing back older people to get everything going in the locker room? The Bears seem to be very happy, and Ben Johnson seems to be happy about what they have. And they have their chances, and we saw how they played all the way to the end. But they certainly have to get their line straight, and they already apparently believe they have a center. Already there's a center who I think is from the Ravens. I can't remember his name. But, you know, they really have to, I think, make some good draft picks. Let's see. They don't pick until number 25. So we'll have to find out how that works. But I think the season, though, very solid season. Could have gone a lot of different ways. Very good finish. Needs to, like I said, all that stuff up there needs to change, but they need to figure out who are going to be the big free agents that they're on offense and defense, especially like people like Jaquan Brisker, big contributor in that secondary, number 9, Brisker, very physical, can cover ground, but can play in the alley. They got to figure out what they're going to do with it. Are you ready to go with a young guy or not? That's going to be the next thing for the Bears.
So, G, what are your thoughts on the Bears? But before you start, big dude, Khalil Mack's a free agent?
Yeah, I think so. They were. I'll double check it, but I know that that's the last thing that they were all trying to do. They were trying to get him to come back. I know he doesn't want to be in LA anymore. You know, he's kind of like probably 75-25. Like, I don't really want to be here. I'd like to finish it out somewhere else. I mean, he's still playing at a high level from what I remember. I didn't know he was 35. I thought he was 32. So
yeah, that's why I asked you, because he's playing at a high level. And if he comes back, that could certainly help the defense. But G, and you have any thoughts that we maybe missed about Chicago's season?
No, I think you all covered it pretty well. If you think about the course of the season, there's a few defensive plays away. But other than that, yeah, you all covered it.
Yeah, it looks like, and I didn't confirm, it looks like Khalil Mack may be back with the Chargers, but that'll be something to keep our eyes on, because that would be a good story for him to go back to Chicago. But anyways, looking at 2026, they have 26 free agents. They're ranked 20th in available cap space at $1.4 million. And for our listeners, this cap space stuff now and the rankings there, it's changing multiple times in the day at this point, with teams releasing players and trading players. So looking at this morning, it changed to the Bears free cap or available cap space changed 2 times today, and their free agents changed a couple of times. So kind of keep that in mind, that at the time that we're having our show, that's the rankings that we have at that time. And we realize by the time we get off, it could certainly change with all the activity. So just want to put an asterisk on that. The big focus for them obviously needs to improve that defense, and they need some offensive line depth. And like every team we've covered so far, playing a ton of playoff teams from the previous year. So it looks like the NFC North has a killer schedule similar to the NFC East. But their biggest needs going into the draft, they need some backside help, safety and cornerback. They need a pass rusher. That's why Big Dude brought up Khalil Mack as a possible good get for them. Another D lineman in the trenches, and certainly an offensive lineman. So moving into what the Bears need to do. Big Dude, you want to kick us off again? What are your thoughts on what the Bears need to do with the draft?
The Bears are not going to be able to get Arvell Reese and and Styles and people like that. And I would say between 17 and 50, that they should really probably go ahead and get an offensive lineman at 17, because probably the offensive lineman, because a lot of people say that you can wait on certain things. I think that this draft is not as heavy on the quality offensive lineman as it is with the edge rushers and a linebacker. So I say they go 17 with an offensive lineman, and if Vega Ione is there.
Hey, big dude, not to interrupt you, they have the 25th pick.
Okay, I got it backwards.
Yeah, Detroit.
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
That's okay. The 25th pick, which tells you more. Here's what I'm hoping. I'm hoping that there's a lineman that's there, either Vega Ione. I don't know if Caden will be available from Alabama, Caden Proctor. And I'm not sure about, there's also, I think, a center, and I would say to move up further from Iowa, whether they would get any of those people, because I think that the Bears have to try to get someone, even though they'll have an OG, and, I agree with you to try to get somebody proven, but you have to get somebody ready and waiting. I think that probably the best center is where I would take a chance on. People probably wouldn't be a popular pick. Then, I'm sorry, now to get this right, I believe they're at 57 next. They're at 57, and you have people like Dennis Sutton, who had a tremendous combine as well, 4.62, high jump, a certain amount, 39 inches, and he had a great, he had everything was great with his athleticism. His 3-cone drill was the best 3-cone drill, better than 10 of the 12 wideouts and DBs at 256 pounds. So you have a person like that they need some type of a game changer on defense, because if you don't get Khalil Mack, then that's what you're looking at. And if you do get Khalil Mack and you get a young man like that, you'll have a force or have somebody to play with that'll be able to give them what they need to get. And other than that, I think it'll depend upon, those are my major things. And I think I talked about DJ, and whether DJ is going to come back, their wide receiver. I think they really have to establish who's going to be big in free agency. And it looks like you mentioned Monungai. Monungai started to take the carries from Swift. So I don't think you need another running back. But the more Monungai takes the carries, you want to know what else that they're going to be able to do. Are they going to bring somebody else younger? I think Swift has a couple more years left. But up front, and they had, I don't know if you remember, y'all happen to go back and remember Boston College in the 80s had really good linemen. One guy whose son is playing for the Bears, Petrillo, Ozzie Petrillo, Steve Petrillo played for Boston College, actually passed away pretty young in his life. But Ozzie Petrillo, they need to bring him back. If they don't bring him back because of his injury, they'll probably need to go at number 117, any type of solid lineman that's left there, or free agency. So they have to establish what's going to happen in free agency on offense, up front, on defense, and in the secondary, especially with somebody like Jaquan Brisker, who's been a stalwart back there for them. So I think that's pretty much what they need to do at this particular point as the number one needs that are up front.
All right, thanks, big dude. G, what direction you have the Bears going in?
So I'm looking at their stated needs, and they did sign a right tackle so far, but they probably still need another lineman. So I think that'd be important. But I think that they'll probably wait to the later rounds for that, because they really need to get their pass rush. And you know how I am. I'm all about the trenches first. So get your edge, get your defensive linemen plugging up the middle, then go to the next level, get your cornerback, then your safety. So I'm thinking that in free agency, let me see, I was just looking at a free agency tracker for them, and so far, like I say, other than Theo Benedette at right tackle and Ismail at wide receiver, um, they still have a whole lot of money to work with, and they still have a lot of people to sign. So they're definitely so I'll edge, defensive line, then I will go cornerback, then safety. Then lastly, in the much later rounds, 5 through 7, making sure I'm getting that offensive lineman. I'm really curious to see how their free agency is going to pan out, though, because I'm looking at how they spread their money around, and they actually do a good job at managing contracts, so they have some money. So I'm real curious to see how that works, because then that can totally change their approach when the draft comes.
I'm with both of you on everything you've said so far. I think I'm definitely going to stick defense, lean a little bit more towards your sentiment, G. One of the things that concerns me with this draft is the fall that Ruben Bain has taken since the combine. He's basically dropped 12 spots in the rankings. And he was at the number 4 pick in the draft, down to 16th ranked prospect right now. And that's really concerning for me. Having said that, however, since they need an edge, if he happens to drop down even more, he might be there for them, and that could be a steal of the first round. So I wanted to make that point. Cassius Howell also dropped, which is interesting to me because I thought he had a good combine. I don't know if anything jumped off the page, just like some of the people that got the headlines, but he should be available for them at that pick unless something crazy happens. So I'm looking at those as possibly their edge selections. You certainly still have Keldrick Falk from Auburn and TJ Parker from Clemson. Fine picks. I wouldn't necessarily go crazy over them. But safety, I really like where they're picking and what their options are for safety. You have the gentleman. I keep talking about this Toledo kid. I know you guys think I'm crazy. I keep going back to this Toledo guy. My guy.
I actually went and watched his tape. So I get it. I get it, Guru. I get it.
As much as I want him for my boys, man, this Emmanuel McNeil Warren, dude, he is something. G just confirmed for me. Thank you. He's going to be something special. It would be a little bit of a reach back where they have him ranked right now. They have him as a 36 pick. So they have him going into the day 2 selections. But man, I don't know about passing up on that.
But here's the thing: he balled out. He balled out at his level. And when we had these discussions, the question I always ask, if you were in the G5 or football championship subdivision, did you ball out in your position to where they just could not do anything with you? Because more than likely that's going to transfer.
Yeah.
And he balled out.
And I think Keon Mitchell's success helps him. Having a proven Toledo guy in the league already that's doing his thing at that level, I mean, that only helps him. And if somebody coming from that same program. This Dylan Thieneman kid from Oregon is interesting. He might be gone. He might possibly be gone. But if he's there, I'm looking at safety between him and Warren. I love me some McNeil Warren. I would reach back. I would reach back for McNeil Warren. I think even though they have him ranked so low, I would reach back for him. The D line, man, I felt like they put a lot of pressure on quarterbacks, but obviously not enough since their defense really didn't make the stops when it counted. I'm not. I think I'd probably try to fill that in free agency. because I'm not in love with any of the guys that'll be available at their pick. The safeties I'm comfortable with, the edge guys I'm comfortable with. So I think I would focus on safety, edge, maybe even cornerback for them. There's some good corners that I think will be available, and fill everything else with free agency, especially if you can get those rookie contracts in those positions and then pay for a veteran edge rusher, because I think a veteran edge rusher will be more impactful than a rookie edge rusher will be in year one, unless he's just a Hall of Famer type, once in a lifetime edge rusher. A lot of these guys that come out as edge rushers, unless they're once in a lifetime type picks, take a little bit to adjust and get to the NFL speed and the technique and all of that, because every lineman that you go up against now is going to present some challenges for you. You're not going to have cherry pick weeks like you had in college. Every lineman you're going to see why you're in the NFL and what the difference is between the NFL and college. So I'd rather spend a little money on that back end and pay for my big guys up front, which will make it easier for my rooks on the back end if I got a guy getting to the quarterback. So that's where I am.
You just changed my view on something. You know how I build from the inside out. But just listening to you make the case for a safety early, I'm like, you know what? Depending on what you have, that actually could be a really, really good move, because you're going to get more yards per possession if you're passing than if you're running, more often than not. And so if I can shut down your pass or limit your passing game, even if my defensive line and maybe my inside linebackers, they may be mid, even if they're mid, they're gonna get a good number of stops. But you want to be able to stop them big chunk plays, 15, 20 yards, or run 10 yards, and then somebody is getting a lot of yak afterwards. And you need a safety who can just come up and hit up and blow up a spot. So now you just totally made me rethink my approach to defense.
It's tough, and I don't think your approach is wrong. I think where your approach changes is where you pick in the draft. If you're up at the top of that draft, I'm with you. Go get one of these potential Hall of Fame cats coming off the edge. But when you start getting down into the late 20s, you're not getting that guy unless you just get lucky. You're not getting that type of guy. But I think in this particular draft, I don't want to say generally, there's a lot of really good players on the back end. I mean, there's going to be a lot of guys that get picked on day 2 and day 3 on that back end that I think are going to be all pros. Like, I love this Brandon Cisse kid from South Carolina, the cornerback. He's ranked 31st. He could get picked the first day, I suppose, but we got a 6-foot guy, this Chris Johnson kid from San Diego State's getting a lot of love these days. So Domani Jackson from Alabama, Malik Muhammad from Texas. I mean, it goes on and on and on with these DBs, man. And the safeties are the cornerbacks and the safeties. This Michael Taft kid from Texas.
I was just looking at him.
One of my favorite college players, man. And he's a leader. He's a guy that could be the leader of your defense for 10 years. So, I mean, there's some guys here. I think this might be one of the best drafts that we've ever seen talent-wise. I really do.
Talking about for the safety position or in general?
In general. These guys, these are some players in this draft. You almost can't go wrong. I think you just need to think what your biggest need is. Think about what your scheme is.
On the position, bro. I think it depends on the position. Like, I'm looking at the safeties now, and honestly, there's not a boatload of separation between maybe the top 15 or so. And you're right. You can go deep with the safeties, but can you go deep with the edges, for example? I don't know how deep you can get with the edges.
You can't go deep with the edges. That's why at that pick, I would say go the back end, because what you're going to get for an edge there, they're like right on the outside looking in. They need somebody to drop to get an impactful edge.
Right. Right.
So,
I can't wait to analyze this after free agency.
oh my God. But they start filling in some of these positions. Like I said, on the back end, it's going to be a much easier endeavor for us to think about the draft when we see what free agents are filling some of these roster spots. But
Mm-hmm.
man, there's some talent in this draft. I can't say it enough. Big dude,
Right.
did you want to add something else?
Yeah, I was just going to say what you all were saying. I mean the replacing Brisker. If they lose Brisker to free agency, they really got to have. And I'm glad you mentioned the young man from Texas, because they're going to need somebody like that to replace Brisker if they're going to play and if they're going to be in there. Because it's almost like you got to have one person that's a solid veteran that you get for a good price. Also to get whoever it is that started next. And that's why I like Pons, because Pons is very small, but he reminds me a lot of Cooper DeJean, really a corner, undersized, but is also listed as the first one I saw as a CBN, a nickel corner.
Mm-hmm.
So when you start talking about people who are nickel corners in this draft, I think you got a lot of people that can play that nickel corner, because I think in college they've changed some of that, especially with some of those pro coaches. They're putting them in a position where they have them doing both and going wherever the strength is. So I think it is going to be important, especially with the Bears, if they change their defense. The Bears had a good season. I don't know if they need to reconstruct their whole roster, but it sounds like, listening to the GM, I think his name is Poles, it sounds like he's ready to, he's the one that said, I love good players, but I hate losing them, but we have to look at every situation. That means there's some people that are going to be coming out of there. And I think you need fresh legs in the secondary. On the edge, like I said, if they can get Khalil Mack on the edge for this year and another guy maybe later in the draft for the edge that's going to come up that could be a surprise, I think that's the way to go. If you can get, or somebody like that, somebody that I say on the other side, G and Guru, that's experienced on the edge. I think that they can do it, because the 25th pick is a difficult pick, and the 57th pick is even more difficult to see who that is. And really, I think they may find their edge. Like I said, somebody like Dennis Sutton at 57. If they get him and he's still there, he's listed at 50, and who knows, he may go up again. But 50s, you got a few, not many, but you can't rely on that. You really need a veteran.
I bet you this will be the best. I bet you this will be I don't want to say the best second round, probably the most talented, immediately contributing group of second rounders that we've ever seen. Because everybody can't go in the top 32, and there's going to be a lot of meat left on the bone when you get to day 2. So that'll be
that
very
second round,
interesting.
man, that right there is going to be an analyst dream.
It really is. And the people picking at the top of that second round, they're going to get very lucky with some top end guys that they'll have to pay second round money only to. So that'll be
Let's
real
look at here.
interesting.
Buffalo, y'all at, oh God, I'm looking at the 7th round. So who's up there that's going to just get Houston? Houston is pretty lucky at 38.
Yeah, they're very lucky at 38. They're very lucky at 38. All right,
Anyway,
so let's.
didn't mean to throw it off.
No, not at all. Not at all. Let's move into the Detroit Lions.
Can I say something about Detroit? And it's just it's a year in and year out gripe.
Please do.
It's
Please
historical, so just tell me to get over it. I just think that they just totally destroyed Barry Sanders. I think they just rode him like a motorcycle, and they just did him. I just thought they did him wrong. They never gave him all the tools that he needed around him so that they could actually go out and win a Super Bowl. And then I don't know what happened the way he retired. I've heard his story, then I've heard people from the inside story. I don't know. Either way is weird. But nevertheless,
Well,
that's a gripe that I have with Detroit. I just can't let it go.
I think that that is a legitimate gripe with Detroit, and I'll tell you why. We can expand on that. You have Barry Sanders, and we can go back. You have Billy Sims. You have Calvin Johnson.
I was just thinking Calvin Johnson. Yep.
To some extent, you have Matthew Stafford.
Yeah.
You had
if you want to get real with it, yeah.
these superstars that you did not bring a supporting cast in, and they gave everything they could and left it out there with no help.
Yep.
I mean, it's a travesty, and Barry Sanders is the epitome of that. It's a shame that Barry didn't get to really enjoy the ultimate fruits of his labor, because we all know what he was to the game, and arguably the best running back to ever step foot on the field. He's not going to be my GOAT running back, but I wouldn't argue with anybody that said that he was there. So that's Barry. The Detroit Lions, wow. Definitely did not expect this from them after the year they had previously. But, we talked about this during the year. I think losing Ben Johnson, losing these coordinators, some of these guys that are special like that, totally brings the team in another direction. And we saw that with Detroit. I mean, their offense still had that explosive look, but when they really needed a play, they didn't have the play caller. They didn't have the play caller to get that play in, the gadget plays here and there that they would hit you with. And based on what you were saying, we're almost headed down that road again with Jahmyr Gibbs. You're almost headed down that same road again, because this kid is too talented. And you could, he's a running back. He gets a lot of touches, both carries and passes out of the backfield. There's only so much wear and tear you're going to be able to take. So we might be on that trajectory for him. I hope not. But looking at their season, as bad as it was for them based on where they were in 2024, they still almost made the playoffs. But I truly think that some of those plays where they couldn't convert third downs, or they couldn't quite come back in games where Ben Johnson would have had that third down call for you, to me, that was the key to everything that didn't happen for them on offense. They didn't really make any offensive splashy moves in the offseason either. They got Tim Patrick from Denver, who's a mid wide receiver, and they got a backup quarterback. Like, that's not going to help your team do anything on offense. Not that they really needed much more on offense, but their issue for them, I think this big year, was their offensive line let them down. We had the unexpected retirements, some injuries. The defense wasn't what it was. I think, didn't Brian Branch end up with a season-ending injury, and that hurt them on the back end? I believe he was out towards the end, and he got suspended. That didn't help. But their defense, their offensive line and their defense, I feel like really let them down this year. They gave up 15 more sacks on Goff than they did the previous year. We all know Goff isn't winning any foot races or winning the cones drill at the combine or anything like that. So he needs all the protection he can get. And defensively, I just think they were a letdown overall. Offense, they still had high rankings, 5th in total offense, 3rd in passing, 14th rushing. All of their guys did their thing. They did lose Laporta, and he's been having injuries the last couple of years, so we need to keep our eye on that. Does Detroit look at a tight end possibly? Because, you start having back problems as a tight end, that's not going to really get much better without some type of surgery, and then you're really never the same once you have a back surgery. So offensively, their talent's there. Defensively, I think that's probably where they're going to probably need to focus, because, like I said, their offense didn't miss much of a beat. They signed some key guys, but they were 15th in total defense, 20th in passing, 14th against the run. They gave up the 11th most points per game. I call that the Buffalo syndrome. You score 40 and you give up 50. That's not going to help you. So got to get that defense right. So basically underperformed on both sides of the ball. Big offseason questions for them are really pretty straightforward. How do you revamp the defense and fill in those pieces on your O-line that you lost? So looking at their season looking at their offseason, they have 30 free agents. They're ranked, as of the recording of this show, 21st in cap space with just under $4 million in deficit there. We talked about fixing the defense and upgrading the O-line, another tough schedule in terms of the number of playoff teams they have to face from last year. Their biggest needs are edge, defensive line, offensive line, cornerback, and safety, and they have the 17th pick. Gee, what does Detroit need to do to get back to that NFC Championship game?
Okay, well, they just recently signed a center from the Texans, Juice Scruggs. So it was showing a trade on this tracker.
Big dudes, boy.
Yeah. So that's actually positive for them, right? You know,
Absolutely.
plugging up that middle.
They got a 4th and 7th round pick. No, I was just saying they also got a 4th and 7th round pick.
Yeah. Oh man, that's great. Now the 7th round, which one was it? Because they have two. They being, I think it was with Houston, was it? Yeah, so Houston have 244. They also have 245. So do you know which one? Because I couldn't find it.
Not sure, but I think it was just.
What are you saying, G? Which picks are Houston's?
Yeah, it looks like Houston did a trade for the center, but they also got a 4th and 7th round. But Houston has 2 in the 7th round. So I was curious which pick it was. Was it 244? Was it 245? And I didn't go a deep dive to try to figure it out. I thought maybe Big Dude did.
No, I actually didn't. I knew that they added one on, but I never saw which pick it was. No.
Oh, okay.
I didn't get specifically which pick that was.
It's dang near Mr. Irrelevant, so.
Yeah. Well,
anyway.
You got people making a team that are that now. I mean, the Pachecos of the world, they're making the team.
That is true. That is true. So, but I say all that. I begin with that to say because that was one of their big needs, offensive line. So they did go the established person for that center role. So I thought that was really important, especially for the run. Well, I don't know much about this person, so I didn't really look at their tape to see how they were at Houston with passing, but I suspect the way Houston performed offensively must have been pretty good even in pass protection. So that's going to be a positive for Chicago. After that, Guru, I have to go back to what we talked about before. Pray that you can get an edge at 25. I mean at 17. Pray. But definitely you're going to be able to get a defensive back. So I definitely can see them going cornerback or safety at that 17 spot. But I was looking at the way they structured their contracts, and they are another team that did a really good job of spreading around. So even though I'm tentatively telling you what I'm saying now, edge, cornerback, safety, defensive line, it'll probably change after free agency in terms of what I think they should focus on.
All right, Big Dude, thoughts on Detroit?
I would say Detroit also has to look at sharpening up that defense. As it says, the edge rusher and the D line, and I say the interior D line. I did see right around where they're at. I think getting the young man from Clemson, I think it's Woods, right? Let me see. Yeah, Peter Woods from Clemson. You know, about 300 pounds, solid. Clemson's defense all the way across is why I'm surprised Clemson didn't have a better year. Clemson didn't have a good year, but they got so many qualified people all over the place. So a lot of people that can ball just didn't all come together. And I think Juice Scruggs coming over is going to be helpful. We don't know. I know that following him and when he was at Penn State, I'm wondering how that one injury was. I know that he set out the 1 year because it was a bad car accident, and then he came back. So he overcame a lot. And he's about 26 now, so that's a good age. And I'm wondering if he came back fully. He must have, and must have passed the physicals for them to take him. And I would also talk about the edge because they also had some other folks. I think Skipper, number 70, the one that also catches the touchdown passes, he retired as well. So you have those type of retirements, Glasgow, Skipper. And you're going to need to find out, especially at 17, who's going to be around at 17. And for sure, I think Fano from Utah was available. They have him moved up. But I say anybody like that falls, or Caden Proctor that no one's taken, I think they need to go ahead and try to get that party started with the tackle and replacing Skipper. Skipper was a big time vet, 11 years. You got to get someone else started. Also, I would say in the secondary, take another look at who's available in the secondary for Detroit. There was, let's see. So at 17, also, if the young man from Oregon is there, Dylan Fenneman, if he's there, I think that's a player I think that Dan Campbell will be able to roll with. You know, that tough, gritty player, that can play in the alley and also make tackles. And their linebacker, I can't remember his name, number 34. I think they've got to decide whether they're going to keep him through free agency because he had a good season, and it'll be interesting to see if they go ahead and if they keep him in free agency. Because if they don't, they'll need a new field general on defense. So there's a lot that's happening. Dan Campbell is a high-energy coach with high expectations. I think it'll be interesting to find out whether he's still and you did mention, Guru, about the play calling and things changing, and he took over the plays. The question is will he still be doing the play calling? Because if he's doing the play calling, I'm sure that he'll get a rookie in there somewhere, but it'll be dependent upon who he pairs with Gibbs. I'm sorry, their running back. Getting rid of Montgomery was a big loss. You know, Montgomery, people have to realize coming off the bench, Montgomery got over 700 yards rushing. So they have to figure out, even though they didn't get to where they needed to through one person or maybe two people or three people, where do you get that production back, that other 700 yards of offense? Like I said, and you mentioned the tight end as well. It might not be a bad idea to make your offense a little bit more exciting if Kenyon Sadiq is there. If Kenyon Sadiq is there at 17, give him a shot and help him stretch the field. So that's where I say that the focus needs to go with Detroit.
You know what? I was just looking. And I asked the question, you know, most of the scores on both of their defenses, you know, were they runs or were they passes? And they were significantly passes, which makes me think the edge and the safety or cornerback are really probably the most important places they need to shore up their defenses.
I want to, before I get into who I think they should draft, the running back situation you referenced, Big Dude, because I'm looking at their depth chart. I do not know anyone past Jahmyr Gibbs on their depth chart. However, there's some interesting free agent running back options. You have Kenneth Walker III, who we spoke about earlier. I don't know if they want to pay what he will probably demand, but we can see. There's Travis Etienne. There's Rico Dowd, and they have Nick Chubb. But I think with his injury history, I'm not going Chubb. Even though he's still productive, I don't think I'd pay him. So I'd look at any of the others as a possible return to the two-headed monster. I just want to make that comment on that, because I think that's a good question. If they want their offense to maintain the level that it has had over the past few years, you need to get that second running back. In terms of where they should draft, I am 100% with you, big dude. Peter Woods, that's their guy. That's their guy. The one thing I don't like about him is he's a little undersized for me for that position. They have him listed at 289. I don't like those interior guys not to be at least 3 bills. So that bothers me a little bit. The other option for them is his teammate, TJ Parker, coming off the edge, 6'4" guy that could help them on defense. And then I've already told you my love for McNeil Warren and Toledo on the back end as the safety if he's there, which he should be there for them. And I would possibly go cornerback. They need some help on defense. I think they can figure out the O-line through free agency or a late draft pick. Just get a big body late and train them up. You got to get some defensive help, because with the weapons they have not, even in losing David Montgomery, that's not enough for that offense to fall off a cliff. I think the offense is still going to be presentable and formidable, and the defense needs to be able to stop somebody. And that's what it's going to come down to, especially if you look at their division. Look at who they have to beat to win that division. Chicago's offense is only going to be better with Caleb with another year. He will go over 4G next year. 4K, I guess, is the more appropriate. He will go over 4K next year. And that offense is going to be better. You figure Chicago adds a wide receiver, then Detroit's going to have to deal with that. Green Bay is going to be formidable on offense. Another year for Jordan Love. Hopefully he progresses. So they're going to have to stop people just to win that division, just to get out of their division, let alone get to a conference championship game or to a Super Bowl. So I'm going to stick with my theme of defense. I partially feel like my defensive theme for everybody is like, in my head, Buffalo needs to stop people. And so everybody else needs to stop people. But yeah, I'm going defense with Detroit. I can't wait to see how free agency breaks out. What's interesting for them, I want to point back to as well, is they have 30 free agents. So they can free up a lot of cap spaces. There's a lot of people that they can, I'm sure, release and free up some cap space to get well above that. So I think they can pick themselves up a nice veteran to fill in one of those spots. And I would go O-line in that veteran situation. So that's it for me for Detroit. Anybody else want to add anything about Detroit, something that may have come up afterwards? Nada. We're done with the Detroit Lions, as was Barry and Billy and Calvin.
Detroit, man.
Yeah, Detroit. All right. Hello to the good people of Detroit. All right. Well, that wraps up our first half of the NFC North. On our next episode, we'll do draft outlooks for Green Bay and Minnesota. Remember to like and follow us. And until next time, don't forget we're on TikTok and Instagram, by the way. Check us out there. Until next time, see ya later.